Hey there, I'm MAYIM BIALIK, and I don't think of myself as really famous, but after my conversation with Kara, I had a really eye-opening, soul-searching time with her, and there's things that I shared here that I don't think I've shared other places.
Hey, this is Kara. You're watching Really Famous, where you get to really know your favorite celebrities because, I was a therapist, so that's what happens. Ready to get to know MAYIM BIALIK really well? She's about to open up about her divorce, being a single parent, other people's opinions, women and men, coronavirus, vaccines. Let's do it. And don't forget to smash that like button and drop a comment about what you love about MAYIM. How did that evolve for you, that whole fairy tale thing?
That's like, it's really smashing the pictures, like smashing the pictures of what you thought your life should look like. And I'm very grateful. My parents were together for 53 years until my father passed. And I was taught that there's only one way to love, and that's it. You find that person at a high school party, you see them across the room, you get married, you move in together. After you get married, you don't have sex with anyone else, and then you're married for 53 years. And like, that's not what my life looked like. And that's not what a lot of people's lives look like. And
but you expected that, though?
Of course,
you wanted
a million percent. Oh, my brother married his high school sweetheart. Like, yeah, I was, to this day, like when my mother hears, like, oh, a friend's mom, just lost her husband. And she's like, oh, how long were they together? And I was like, oh, like 60. She's like, that's true love. And I was like, what?
What does that even mean? What does that mean?
Well, also, what does that mean? But what I think she means is that, like, that's the image that many of us are sold. That's what we're told, and especially as women.
Yeah, I'm picturing that commercial. Have you seen that commercial? I feel like it was like 5 or 10 years ago even. There's this couple strolling through like Central Park or something, and then it's a young couple, and then they pass an old couple holding hands, and it was like, that's the ultimate. And it's sort of like what you're saying, like that just is another societal message.
100%. And I think also, especially for women, like, we all live in the patriarchy, whether you call it that or not, whether you like it or not. We all do live in a society that was structured around women being taken into their husband's home, taking his name, being part of that collective property. And of course, that's not what it literally looks like now, but that stuff takes a long time to unwind. It takes a long time for us to be like, oh, wait a second. I don't have to just live in the house and make babies. But when I leave the house, I kind of miss them because I gave birth to them. But also, like, how do you do both? Why not do both? Why won't they let me do, like, the confusion for women, I think, gets very complicated. And men too. But yeah, I think that it was that notion of like, I'm a divorced person, and that's my reality. And like, that's an opportunity for the serenity prayer, right? You change what you can. And my ex-husband and I, like, we've worked, we've been divorced, gosh, I guess it's 8 years. We have worked to become the kind of people who are friends raising children, and of course I annoy him a lot of the time. And of course he annoys me, but like, that's okay. We don't have to live together anymore.
Sure. Of course. I mean, that's not just okay. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's really elevated.
Well, and we were literally like the first couple we knew to get divorced. And I have to tell you, the number of couples who have gotten to, like, just in my circle, it's astounding. And
like, since then, in the 8 years, you mean?
Yeah.
So why do you think that is?
I have no idea what's going on. I mean, there's a lot of things, I think that, I don't know. I mean, I've known several just during the quarantine. Like, it's rough out there. It's very rough out there. And, also I live in LA. So I know this isn't true everywhere, in the country or in the world, but definitely in LA, there's a lot. I think there's a lot of still gender confusion, meaning in terms of who does what, whose responsibilities are what, not gender confusion the other way. Like, I know what you mean.
Where some of the old 50s notions are still being worked out.
Correct. And I think, like, much as we feel like, oh, the women's movement was so long ago, it wasn't that long ago. Like, when you take human history and you take the evolution of us, like from hunter-gatherer society to now, it's like barely happened. And so the thought that, like, in one generation or two generations, we're going to figure this out, that we went from my mother's generation, my mother said, I never even thought to keep my name. But she said, why would I give up my name? She's like, no one can find me in the world. I can't look anybody up on Facebook. Like, no one told us we could keep our name. And like to go from that to women in our generation who are either like hyphenating or including or not taking a name and not feeling bad about it. Like so many things also we have to catch up to so many other things. Like the patriarchy does not unwind in 40 years, you know?
Right. And these things take time and they're uncomfortable too. There's going to be a lot of, and not going to be, but there's still going to be a lot of struggle and a lot of pain. And it's really like change and growth can get ugly, but it's necessary because that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah. We break down before we build back up, you know?
Right.
And I think also like so many people don't, you know, we want the fix now. It's very Western of us. You know, we want the fix right now. We want it better right now. Like, oh, let's open up our marriage. That'll fix it. Let's have another baby. That'll fix it. And the fact is the kind of growth that we do as humans who tend to not necessarily tend towards monogamy as a species. If you want to force yourself to be in one place with a dude as a woman, strap on your seatbelt because he's likely not going to be the one to meet all of your girlfriend needs. That's not what that partnership's supposed to do. And also, you know, there are couples of women, like women couples and men couples. They have these struggles too. It's not just about genitalia, you know, it's about
it's like it takes a village even in this way. We're not talking about raising kids, but like,
and it takes balance and tolerance, meaning you don't need to be with someone who's exactly like you, but the skills needed to navigate that is what a lot of us don't have, you know, and we're kind of like muddling through it together.
That's interesting. So like how, I think you're right, but like how would we as a society give people skills like that? You know what I mean? Like that's an interesting question, I guess.
I mean, like if you want me to use my like super creative brain, like my creative mental health brain, yeah, I think that the kind of reasoning that you and I are talking about, I think should be part of our education from the time that we are in puberty, if not before. And we're seeing this with a lot of progressive children's books about feelings and, you know, learning to talk in a different way and think in a different way and understand that people are different and people have different feelings. And I'm not just talking about like being a hippie and being like books about trans people is the answer. Like, I'm not talking that specifically, although that may be the answer for some people, but the notion that we have something inside of us that needs calm, that needs space, that needs a certain amount of boredom, the notion of teaching mindfulness, like that's something we're starting to see in certain public schools, you know, here and there. That opens us up to the possibility of understanding our place in a way that none of us have been taught. And to me, learning how to be a good partner, not just sex ed and some of the things that are being taught in sex ed. Yeah, I wouldn't send my kid for those classes. Like, I don't need you to tell them every single detail about every single possible way to not get pregnant. Like, we can talk about it other times, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about emotional preparation, like for what comes next in the world. I mean, if we're going to teach you how to do math so you can balance a checkbook, why do we not give anyone skills for how to exist as a psychologically present human? Like, it's not just about say no to drugs. It's about drugs and alcohol are the things that we do to fill that God-shaped hole, right? Whatever that hole is in your soul, whether it's from trauma or abuse or just being an existentially existing human, we're going to fill it with something. You can fill it with work, you can fill it with food, or you can fill it with this self-awareness, you know? And there's still going to be people who want to drink and do drugs. I totally get it. But the notion that when you're a teenager, that's what you're being taught to fill it with. Or here, take this pill, take Prozac, that'll fix it.
Right, or take this phone, or get more followers, or whatever it is.
Correct. Take a better selfie.
Yeah, right. If you could only master the selfie, you're going to be mastering life, which of course is not. Just in case it sounds face value or whatever. Can you imagine though, if everybody was like, when we get kids at a young age and they're taught how to empathize and how to understand and listen to other people, and you know, that would just change everything. I mean, maybe it wouldn't change everything.
No, but I have to say that, you know, a lot of the And I do not have perfect children. Absolutely not. I would never claim that. I'm not a perfect parent.
Well, nobody
They are not
does.
perfect children. No, nobody does. But what I will say is that, I was teased and ridiculed and called out for a lot of aspects of parenting choices that I made very consciously. And there are those among us who do believe that the way you conduct yourself in pregnancy, the way you prepare to have a baby, the way you give birth, meaning the mental state you're in, the way you set up the first 40 days of the new life of a child. People love to laugh at us hippies who don't let anyone in the house for 40 days and, do all these things where we put a sign on the door. Please respect this home. We just had a new little soul enter it. Please ask what you can do to be of service and leave in 20 minutes, right? I'm a lactation educator counselor. Many problems that I counsel women about regard their lack of self-care in the postpartum period, meaning doing what they think they should do, doing what having the mother-in-law come who's not supportive, and then wondering why they're getting breast infections and get, run down and all these things. So a lot of the things that we, attachment parents do are done because we do believe it facilitates a level of communication with our children that we hope will set them up for solid dependence and future independence. And people told me my kids would never walk. They'd never eat right because I kept breastfeeding them so long. They'll never want to be separate from you. And the things that we were told were absolutely right for our family. They may not be right for every family, but that's sort of the awareness that many of us choose to have about a lot of aspects of parenting. And it's not easy. And we do choose to homeschool partly because we want that connection with them that way. But the fact is, there are so many ways to parent, but every child deserves a present parent. Every child. They deserve a present caregiver.
And that's why you decided to leave acting, right? You decided to get your PhD and be home because there's one, I'm just kind of repeating what I heard you say before. There's one chance.
Well, right. And then also I did not continue with a postdoc after getting my doctorate because I chose to be home with my kids. I don't know if that's the right decision for every woman. Some women may want to go right back to work, and that's totally fine. But that doesn't mean that the child doesn't get a present caregiver, And there have to be ways that we can still encourage parents to value being a parent. And I think especially a lot of women were taught, you can do it all. I mean, that's what I was told. You can be a superwoman. You can work. You can have kids. You can work your way up the corporate ladder. And what a lot of women are realizing and writing incredible books about is that you cannot be in more places at once than you can be. And it's also okay to say, wow, there are many countries in the world, yes, Northern European countries in particular, that say we value parenting. We value it so much that we're going to give you a year paid leave. And we're going to give you your job back, and then your partner can take off when you go back to work. Like, there are countries that have prioritized that. Yeah. We are not those economies. We are not those populations. However, given the resources in this country, you would think we could come up with a way to allow more moms and dads to be able to say, this is an important job. Parenting is an important job. It doesn't mean you have to do it. If you want to go back to work, by all means, go back to work. But for the people who are torn or the people who want to find a way to make it work, it's extremely difficult. And during the quarantine, so many of us are basically being told either have a job or school your children, because that's a decision every woman wanted to have to make.
Right. Because it basically is impossible to do both, but it's not impossible. It's possible, but like, you can't do them perfectly.
No. And the fact is, when people are like, well, you homeschool, how do you do this? We homeschool with one working parent, that's me, and one parent whose job is to be the homeschool parent. Every family that I know in our homeschool community is not part of a family with two working parents. You cannot do that. Homeschooling involves being physically available, emotionally, cognitively available. It doesn't mean setting them up on a Zoom and hoping it goes okay, because that will make everyone crazy. So what people are doing now is, you're right, it's impossible. What we're doing is we're all doing the best we can right now. Mm-hmm. And when I'm working and have my kids and I'm getting them set up on Zoom, I'm as crazy as you are. I'm like, I can't, I got to do that. People are, I don't know, figure it out. Like, that's what my house looks like. And also feed the cats when you're done.
But that's life. That's family. That's what it is. That's just,
and we're all in it. We're all in it. Except for the 1%, we're all in it. Meaning like, except for the people who can pay to have tutors take care of their children. And God bless them if that's what fine. But for those of us who are in the trenches with our kids, we're all in it together. I have to believe my child's future is not going to be dependent on this screwy year, because it's a mess.
It's a mess. That's all I can say. I could say so much more, but like sometimes all that I can say is it's a mess. Like, how are you feeling emotionally? Like, how are you dealing with 2020 emotionally?
I don't like it. I don't like it. You know, as a Jewish person who actually goes to synagogue and gets a lot out of that, it's been a huge loss for my family, because that's our social hub. It's our community hub. It's our social justice hub. We go to a very progressive synagogue where every week we get to learn why it's relevant to be a person of faith, and fight for voices that need to be elevated. And I've missed that. I do not stream services online. So Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which are very big, you know, religious, spiritual holidays, they were very quiet in my house.
Right. So why don't you stream them? Do you decided you don't want to?
No, it's not. My religious sensibility does not feel, it just doesn't feel right to me to be, for me, meaning it doesn't feel right for me to be on a computer and a TV. I don't want that interface with technology on a holy day, just for me.
I get it.
It's a huge loss, but that's been an unnecessary part of life, you know, meaning for all of us to like, you're losing our community. I feel anxious. You know, I'll be honest. I am a bleeding heart liberal person. The Black Lives Matter movement has really, you know, it has torn my heart out, rightfully so. Sure. I've had a lot of conversations with my children. We watched the 13th, you know, the documentary. And we've taken this time to talk a lot about different populations and what that means in this country. And I'll be super honest. I don't know who to trust. I don't know what to trust. I don't know which news to trust. I don't, on any given day, know if I should listen to the CDC or if they're going to be told by the president something that he wants them to say. Like, it feels really scary. And to me, no matter what your political party is, if we don't feel like we can trust certain institutions, it feels like I'm flying without a net. It does. It feels like I'm flying without a net. I happen to feel a tremendous amount of anxiety as a Jewish person, as a minority person in this country. We are 2% of the population. I do not like the discussions of white supremacy and white supremacist groups. It scares me. It scares my children. It scares my ex-husband. It's a set of conversations I really never thought I'd be having in this lifetime. And for people who are like, oh, the Holocaust happened so long ago, why stop teaching it to your kids? We obviously have not learned the lessons because there's genocide everywhere. There's genocide all over the world. And in our very own country, and in our very own country. And I don't feel safe for my Black brothers and sisters. I don't feel safe for my lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender friends. It doesn't feel good. And for me, that's anxiety. Like, my nails are a mess. My sleep is a mess. My eating, like, oh, I'm eating. Am I even hungry? What's going on? Like, that's what it's like over here.
Right. Well, so you're normal and you're human, as
Thank you.
You know, we didn't know that already, but yeah, obviously. So that's what else can you be? If you're not, then you're also not feeling things, thinking things. I think it's what we have today. It's what we're dealing with.
Absolutely.
I feel like also, like, you're so fascinating to talk to, and your mind works so fast and you think about
very
things
fast
on such an interesting level. I love that. I wonder, like, I feel like you need friends like that too. Like, so have you
very
always
hard.
found friends like that, or no? I bet hard, right?
Yeah, very hard. And this is one of the things that I actually just did a really fun project. Well, HP did a really cool project, the Dear Future Me campaign, where they had like 12-year-olds writing letters to themselves and then 18-year-olds opening the letters they wrote when they were 12. Cool. And it's got me thinking a lot about, like, when I was 12, like, my fear was that no one was like me. And indeed, many people are not. But what I wish I had known at 12 was that, like, you'll find more people like you. And I did. It did take me really until college, really until I left. Hi, Kat. Really until, until I left my parents' home, both physically and also kind of psychologically, to start being my own person. I'll be honest, the person that I, married, we were friends for 2 years and we were together for 5 years and we were married for almost 10. Like, he was one of the first people when I found him and his group of friends, I was like, oh, there's people who listen to my music. They read my books. They have my sense of humor. That was a revelation. But, I met him when I was 20 years old, and that felt like a long time to wait. There've been a couple other people.
That's
Someone
young,
who I used
I'm
to,
going to say. I'm going to say
oh,
that's
thank
not
you.
that old.
Okay, but we didn't stay married, so I don't know if that
Yeah,
counts.
okay, right.
No, but I have there's two other men in my life who I feel, I mean, it's usually men. I'm a dude woman.
Interesting.
Like I like sports. I think drinking a beer and watching sports is really the solution to most problems. But yeah, there's a friend of mine, Emmanuel Shalev. He's actually who helped me start my YouTube channel because he believed in me more than I believed in myself, and we worked together for years. He's the CEO of Aleph Beta, which is a Jewish educational website. And I have a current business partner, who's my partner in many ways. And also, like, I found that person who thinks like I do, talks like, and it's magical. And I really do feel like we actually met 10 years ago and kind of circled each other for 10 years, which is also a beautiful story. But yeah, it took, being almost 45 years old to be like, wow, that's a person who literally gets all those parts of me. And I have very, very close female friends. I will say that the women I can get close to have been in a lot of therapy, or have been in a lot of 12-step recovery, have a structure for living a life of ethical, honest, spiritually driven healing. Like that's just my people, that's
interesting.
But I think they may have broke the cast with this one.
That's nice. But they might have broken the cast, but there's still, like, right, you're saying there are some people who aren't the same, but who get you, who you get. And that's like a beautiful thing. But I know that it's hard to get to that place and to find them, but that's awesome that you have found them.
Thank you. Yeah, it took time. It took time for sure. I cried a lot.
I believe you. Well, you still cry though, right?
Yes. Oh, I do. I'm a crier.
Well, it's a necessary thing. You mentioned something else also that I wanted to ask you about. So your YouTube channel, you put out a new YouTube video about vaccinations, right?
Yeah. Well, my children we were late vaccinators. We were delayed vaccinators, and I got a lot of flack for that. And what happens on the internet is one person says MAYIM BIALIK doesn't believe in vaccinations, and then it gets picked up. I've actually never said I don't believe in vaccinations, and it became
obnoxious.
It became literally this thing that has followed me for literally 15 years. That like MAYIM BIALIK doesn't believe in vaccines. She's a doctor. How could she not believe in? And like ridiculous. So. At first I would try and be like, no, that's not what I said. People have other, and what I found is that some people, especially on the internet, and especially in those earlier days of the internet, they didn't want to have conversations. They wanted to run with an emotional response to something and spread that around. And I felt like there wasn't really a forum for me to have legitimate conversations. And it startled me when I started hearing from people that they were not planning to get a COVID vaccine. And it startled me in a way that made me really afraid to do what I did, in that I came out as a scientist and as a person who has been skeptical of the vaccine schedule currently, which is very different from what it was when I was a kid. I've come out as a person who does take issue with a lot of aspects of the pharmaceutical industry, a lot of the profit-driven aspects of the pharmaceutical industry, who still believes that you do not mess around with COVID. And I'm also going to take a flu shot for the first time in probably 30 years this year, like rolling up my sleeves. And I really do believe we are in this together. I really do believe that science works. I believe in science. I believe in masks, and I believe in social distancing. And I believe in a consistent support of each other by each other to try and stop spreading a virus, which, while it may not be as deadly as some people feel they need it to be concerned, we don't know why it's killing otherwise healthy people. And it is causing a series of reactions in bodies that are very different. And we don't know enough to be able to say we'll get herd immunity. Vaccines are never 100% effective. This one will not be. Not everyone will get it, but do the math. We will not get to herd immunity as quickly as possible if people do not take this vaccine.
Well said. I mean, you're so clear in how you describe everything. Like, I really have to give you credit too, because obviously you know what you're talking about, but to be able to say it in this way, communicate it so clearly so that people really hear what you're saying, understand it, and feel it. It's unusual. I think it's
well, unique. And also I've told you enough about my family. I'm sure you could guess the reason that I'm like this is because every dinner was a debate. Every dinner was who can be heard and how do you get heard? The best way to get heard in my family is to be loud and to get to your point quickly. That's literally why I speak the way I do.
And not to talk about feelings, though. You can't let the feelings get in the conversation,
you get
right?
to the feelings later. When you cry in your bed and you put yourself to sleep by crying, that's when you talk about feelings.
Right. So again, it's gifts, right? Gift and curse, a little bit of both. It's all part of the package.
Correct.
So let me ask you, if you don't mind, just a couple of quick questions. We've gone on about an hour or so, so I don't want to keep you all day. I could easily, but I respect your time frame.
Thank you.
So what is one of the biggest lessons that you've learned as a parent?
Oh gosh.
I know there are many. So
there are many. Yeah, like you're never done growing. You know, your children, I mean, they're my mirror. They're absolutely my mirror. Every time that I want to scream at them, be rough with them with my words or my hand, it's because they've triggered something in me or I do not have enough resources to handle them. I'm never done growing.
Okay. Biggest lesson or one lesson that you learned in Hollywood or entertainment?
You're replaceable. We're disposable, you know? My production company is called Sad Clown. Like we're sad clowns, you know?
So interesting. Okay. One, like we talked about gift and curse. What's one gift and one curse of The Big Bang Theory?
Wow. The gift is that it allowed me actually to be with my children. A sitcom schedule is very, very easy for family. That was amazing. I don't know, a curse. Oh, straightening my hair for that many years, that many times a week damaged my hair and it may never grow longish again.
Wait, really?
It stops about here. It won't grow anymore. It's really sad.
That's not so.
But
that's
now I have a tiny haircut and I love it.
It's cute. So that's interesting. So that was from every day of straightening your hair on set?
Yeah. And somebody was like, I straighten my hair every day and it's not like that. Well, you have better genetics than I do. My hair is done being straightened.
Right. If we learn anything, we talk about anything, it's that everybody's different. Everybody's unique.
I mean, I hate anecdotal, like people are like, well, that didn't happen to me, so it can't be happening to you. That's actually not how science works at all.
Totally not. Okay. And one regret, one thing that you would do differently if you could roll back time.
Like just in any time in my life?
Yeah. Open-ended question. As a therapist would truly like to give you.
It's hard, you know, it would probably center around my dad. You know, I said everything that I wanted to say. I really did. I was very clean when my father died. But I physically wasn't there, meaning I was with him. It was Passover, the Jewish holiday was starting, and I had to go home to prepare for the holiday so that I could come back and be with my mother for the holiday. And he died while I was gone. And, you know, part of me wishes like I hadn't left, but the universe would have been different. You know, maybe I needed to leave for it to happen like that. So maybe that wasn't a good one and also a depressing one. You know what? I should have drank more wine before I acquired an allergy to wine. I became allergic to wine past 40, like itchy palms and hives just from wine. I know people are gonna be like, it's the sulfites. I don't like wine enough to figure out if it's the sulfites, but I should have drank more when it didn't give me like a hangover from half a glass and itchy palms.
Well, there could be worse things to be allergic to, I think.
I guess.
So who do people think you are? What's the image people have if they're going to say, oh, I know MAYIM BIALIK. What would they say, do you think?
Oh, people usually say that I'm serious, I'm weird, controversial, you know, yeah, annoying. I think people think I'm annoying, which is fine. Like plenty of people think I'm annoying. But I think people think I'm much more like serious than I actually am. People assume that I'm very, very uptight. I actually have a vulgar sense of humor. I don't really talk about it publicly just because it's whatever. It's not, I leave that to like the Sarah Silvermans and the Amy Schumers. They can talk all about their hoo-hoos on stage. But I actually have a very vulgar sense of humor. I mean, I'm fine with like, I curse, I like sports, you know, I grunt loudly when there's sports things happen.
So interesting. Just this time I've spent with you, I wouldn't think any of those things. that you mentioned. You know what I mean? Like all you have to do is look beyond whatever.
I'm your favorite onion. Am I your favorite onion?
Yes, you're my favorite onion, but we're all onions. But yes, you are quite a layered onion. And then, so then the last question is, who are you really?
Oh gosh. You know, like I'm Mayim Chaya, like my Hebrew name, you know, is like my, I feel like my truest identity. I'm the child of my parents. In Hebrew, we don't have last names. Last names were actually only used by Eastern European Jews starting like in, I think, the 1600s. You were always known as the child of your parents, and that's who I am. I'm the child that my parents named me on day 8. And I'm the child of Brina Basha and Benjamin Yiddle, you know, 2 first-generation Americans who, you know, whose parents came here because it had to be better than what they left, you know, and here we are.
I have to thank you. You're so good at this.
I kind of wish you were my therapist, but I hope my therapist doesn't hear this. I hope that you'll consider coming on and talking to me about the mental health category of your choosing, because you're also fascinating and so well spoken and so interesting, and I would love to turn the tables and get to pick your brain. So
I would be honored. It would be a privilege. I
would love that. Yes.
There's more, guys. Mayim and I talked about her mental health struggles, Hollywood, her really difficult childhood and how it impacted her, and more. Check it out by clicking on this card up here or in the link down below in the description. Please remember to tap the like button and to subscribe for more intimate talks with your favorite celebrities. I'm Kara. See you soon.